Okay.
May I thank you for taking your Saturday
Hvala, da ste si vzeli svojo soboto,
to come here today.
da pridete sem danes.
And it's always good to have some feedback.
Vedno je dobro imeti nekaj odgovora nazaj.
Are you getting something positive, very good from today?
Ali dobivate nekaj pozitivnega, zelo dobrega od danes.
I'm happy.
Vesel sem.
Okay. I'd like these next two sessions to be, certainly the second one of the two, to be a little more interactive. And I may ask some of you about your businesses and perhaps how you would like to see them become even more kingdom focused. And what that would look like.
Naslednja ura bo načrtujem bolj interaktivno in želim vprašati tudi nekatere od vas, kako bi videli svoj posel bolj orodje za Božje kraljestvo.
There is something extraordinary happens when an excellent business person
Nekaj izjemnega se zgodi, ko odlični poslovnež,
an excellent business concept
odlični poslovni koncept
and good resources are working together.
in dobri izviri delujejo skupaj.
There's something even more powerful when the gifts of the Spirit are operating in that business too.
Še bolj mogočno pa je, če tudi darovi Svetega Duha delujejo v tem poslu.
And there was a man who came to speak at one of our events.
Na enem od naših dogodkov je prišel govoriti človek,
who had a very difficult journey to Christ.
ki je imel zelo težko pot do Kristusa.
His wife was what I would describe as thoroughly born again, spirit filled.
Njegova žena je bila resnično na novo rojena in izpolnjena z Duhom.
He thought he knew God.
In on je mislil, da je poznal Boga.
And one day, as they were traveling along the motorway,
In nekoč, ko sta potovala po avtocesti,
their 3-year-old daughter managed to open the back door of the car
je njuna 3-letna hčerka uspela odpreti zadnja vrata avta
and fell out of the car doing 60 miles an hour.
in padla ven iz avta pri 90 na uro.
Doesn't bear thinking about it.
Težko pomisliti na kaj takega.
She was clutching her teddy bear
Držala se je svojega medvedka
and she bounced along the side of the motorway
in je odskakovala ob avtocesti.
They stopped the car, ran along the hard shoulder,
In sta ustavila avto in tekla nazaj,
to pick up the young girl,
da pobereta deklico.
and she was totally unharmed.
In je bila popolnoma
She
nepoškodovana.
bounced on the teddy bear.
Poskakovala je na medvedku.
Some time later, this lovely man's father died,
Enkrat kasneje je oče tega moža umrl
and they had a very tremendous engineering business,
in so imeli izjemen inženirski posel.
designing like solid fuel combustion heaters.
Dizajnirali so grelnike na trdo gorivo
He got a call one night to say the factory was on fire.
in so jih poklicali enkrat, da njihova fabrika gori
And they lost everything.
in so izgubili vse.
Through this journey of turbulence, he dug deeper into his relationship with God.
Skozi to turbulentno potovanje je prišel globje v odnos s Bogom
And eventually he came to the conclusion
in končno je prišel do zaključka,
that he knew about God,
da je vedel o Bogu,
but he didn't know God.
ni pa poznal Boga.
And the relationship began.
In odnos z njim se je začel.
Fast forward many years later,
Preskočimo veliko let naprej.
he had 1,000 employees
Imel je 1000 zaposlenih
and won an award from the President's office in America.
in je dobil nagrado predsednika v Ameriki.
One of the most prestigious awards for engineering.
Eno najbolj prestižnih nagrad za inženirstvo.
One day,
Enkrat,
and this is a demonstration of the gifts,
in to je bila demonstracija darov,
one of the company's favorite young women resigned.
je dala odpoved ena od najljubših sodelavk v tej firmi.
And because he was a good boss, close to many of the staff, he wanted to know why.
In ker je bil dober šef in je bil blizu mnogo zaposlenim, je želel vedeti zakaj.
And the girl gave some reason, she was moving on, but it didn't sound real.
In ta ženska je dala ene razloge, da pač mora iti naprej, ampak ni zvenela resnično.
So he asked if she would come to the office with one of the HR managers.
In jo je prosil, če lahko pride v pisarno z enim od kadrovskih menedžerjev.
And as she came into the office, the Holy Spirit said to him, she's pregnant.
In ko je prišla v pisarno, mu je Sveti Duh prišepnil noseča je.
And she was without boyfriend or husband.
Bila je brez fanta, brez moža.
Now, here's the inflection point. Because the HR manual in this PC world would say, don't go there.
In tukaj se je malo drugače zgodil. Ta kadrovik bi rekel, ne se dotikati tega področja.
But for the Holy Spirit has told you something.
Ampak če ti Sveti Duh reče nekaj,
If you're obedient,
če si poslušan,
there'll be an outcome.
se bo dobro zgodil.
So he took a risk.
Tako da je tvegal.
My dear, are you pregnant?
Moja draga, si mogoče noseča.
And of course she was shocked and she said yes.
Seveda je bila šokirana in rekla ja.
And surprised. He said, well, don't let you being pregnant mean you have to separate yourself from the company.
In je rekel, ne dovoli, da to, da si noseča, povzroči ločitev od našega podjetja.
As soon as you're ready,
Takoj, ko boš pripravljena,
come back to work,
prideti nazaj na delo.
and we're going to build a nursery in the factory,
Bomo poskrbeli za vrtec znotraj tovarne
and your baby will be the first one.
in tvoj otrok bo prvi v tem vrtcu.
This is the kingdom of God.
To je Božje kraljestvo.
Going back to the notes I made earlier, restoration, reconciliation, reformation, restitution, all the others.
Vse te besede na R, reformacija, obnova, transformacija.
So, sometimes there can be confusion between being a good man or a good woman
Včasih je lahko zmeda med tem, da si dober človek,
which be doing good things
ki dela dobre stvari
for people.
za ljudi.
But, to be frank, even the unsaved can do good things.
Ampak iskreno povedano, tudi neodrešeni lahko delajo dobre stvari.
And it's wonderful to give away and to give service to others.
In čudovito je dati drugim stvari
But it's only a shadow
in
of the
služenje.
kingdom.
Ampak to je samo senca Božjega kraljestva.
We have many young men in the office in London, and they're often described as being lovely.
Imamo veliko mladih v naših pisarnah in jih opisujejo, da so
Lovely young
prijetni.
boys. And why they describe this way? Because they are.
In zakaj jih tako opisujejo? Ker so res taki.
Lovely young boys.
So čudoviti mladeniči,
And loving
ljubeči,
and very adorable.
zelo čudoviti.
But sometimes I say to them,
Ampak včasih jim
maybe
rečem,
you're too nice.
mogoče si preveč prijazen,
Because when you're carrying the kingdom of God inside of you,
ker ko nosiš Božje kraljestvo znotraj sebe,
you are bound to cause offense
boš neizogibno povzročil tudi užaljenost,
as well as attraction.
ne samo privlačenje.
And if people don't hate you,
In če te ljudje ne sovražijo,
then you're not following the Lord.
ne slediš Gospodu.
Does that sound strange?
A to zveni čudno?
Love you and hate you.
Da te
But
ljubijo in
your life
sovražijo.
with the kingdom in you will be definitive.
Ampak tvoje življenje v kraljestvu je na ta način
And your
določeno.
company as a reflection of you will be definitive.
In tvoja firma kot odraz tebe bo določena s tem.
We're fortunate to have a business that invests in companies all around the world. We as investors and other investors around us, but we would be normally associated with investing in Africa.
Veselje mi je imeti firmo, ki investira v firme, organizacije, vse povsod, ampak običajno investiramo v Afriko.
Or in Kyrgyzstan.
Ali v Kyrgyzstan.
Or in East Africa.
Ali v vzhodno Afriko.
So when we bought a 5-star hotel in Scotland, this one,
tako da ko smo kupili hotel s 5 zvezdicami na Škotskem, to je tale,
got a lot of very interesting reaction from Christians.
Smo dobili veliko zanimivih reakcij od kristjanov.
Now Paul's going soft.
Paul se mehča.
Maybe he wants an easy retirement.
Mogoče hoče lahko pokojitev.
But this is an interesting perspective of the kingdom.
Ampak to je zanimiv pogled na kraljestvo.
There was a chaplain of Edinburgh University.
Bil je kaplan oziroma ravnatelj Edinburške univerze.
And he was a chaplain for 6 years at the university.
In bil je ravnatelj 6 let na univerzi.
And they wanted to extend his contract for another 3 years.
In so želeli podaljšati njegovo pogodbo še za 3 leta.
And he said no.
In je rekel ne.
I'm moving on now.
Grem naprej zdaj.
I want to be a hotelier.
Želim biti hotelier.
And the staff and the staff and the guests will be my congregation.
In osebje in gostje bodo moja krščanska skupnost.
It's a mindset.
To je način razmišljanja.
If you love hospitality,
če ljubiš gostoljubje,
if this is your natural gifting,
če je to tvoj naraven dar,
if this is where you exercise your gifting in the natural and in the spirit,
če v tem, čez to delujejo tvoji darovi, tako naravni kot duhovni,
it's probably very likely that that's where God will anoint you.
Je zelo verjetno, da te bo Bog na tem pomazil.
I didn't do too well at school.
Meni ni šlo prav dobro v šoli.
And for 2-3 years I was a waiter, a night porter, a wine waiter, a chef de rang.
In 2 ali 3 leta sem bil natakar, kuhar.
I don't know why, but I love hospitality. And I've never had the chance to really be in it before.
Tako mi je všeč gostoljubnost, pa nisem imel prej priložnost biti v njej.
And someone said to me who was a little more mature.
Nekdo mi je rekel, ker je bil malo bolj zrel.
He said, yes, you can see God in the dust of Africa.
Rekel je, ja, lahko vidiš Boga v afriškem prahu.
And you can see him in the gardens of this hotel.
In lahko ga vidiš v vrtovih v tem hotelu.
You can see him in the wildlife.
Vidiš lahko ga v divjem življenju.
You can see him in the stunning excellence of the food.
Lahko ga vidiš v osupljivi odličnosti hrane.
And when we establish the kingdom in our place of work, everything changes.
In ko vzpostavimo Božje kraljestvo, v tem, kar delamo, se vse spremeni. Govorimo o firmi, ki ima 50 zaposlenih.
Let me be certain on this for you. If you have 50 staff,
ne vam zagotovim glede tega, če imate 50 zaposlenih,
15 of them actuarially will have problems at any given time.
Bo 15 ljudi približno kadarkoli imeli težave.
It is just a cross-section of the reality of society.
To je eno povprečje realnosti v družbi.
Oh, you can go back on. Sorry. So this one is displaying red all around the neck and the mouth here.
In ta človek ima rdeče tukaj po vratu in po ustih.
She actually has a very serious alcohol problem.
no ta ženska je imela resničen problem z alkoholom.
This other one is unable to concentrate at work
Ta drugi se ne more koncentrirati pri delu.
because she discovered the son is a drug addict.
Tudi ženska, ki je odkrila, da je njen sin odvisen od mamil.
It could be divorce, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol,
Lahko je ločitev, lahko so droge, lahko
it
je
could be
alkohol,
grieving.
lahko je žalost.
If we could, we're going to travel to another continent.
In
And head of technical, the ACTB, and these stories are to illustrate,
te zgodbe so
I suppose,
imajo
without
namen,
being falsely humble, that if God can use me and Terry and others in this way, then for sure He's using you. And the more this accelerates, the more it subverts normal culture, the normal way of doing things, if you like.
če mene, brez da sem lažno ponižan, če mene Bog lahko tako uporablja, koliko bolj lahko vas uporablja.
Okay, so if you go to just one of the pictures on here about us. Click on about us. That one? Yeah. Try that. While I'm talking, you see if you can just bring up some pictures there. So, we talked a little bit earlier about the prophetic.
Malo prej smo govorili o preroškem.
Yeah. And I think most people will have some understanding of that.
Yeah.
How many people would understand the apostolic?
Kdo od vas pa bi razumel apostolsko?
Put your hand
Besedo
up if you
apostolsko.
understand the apostolic.
Dvignite
Okay.
roko, če
So-
lahko razumete.
So sometimes you see a church and it says the so-and-so apostolic church of so-and-so.
Včasih
For
vidimo
certain it's not.
neka apostolska cerkev.
Because often you'll see the leaders of the church sat on a throne or something, but the
Gotovo to
nature,
ni, ker samo voditelji cerkve sedijo na svojem prestolu.
the apostolic is absolutely not confined to the Levitical. So it's not confined to church structures in
Apostolstvo
nature.
ni po naravi omejeno na strukturo v cerkvi.
In fact, I would go as far as to say most entrepreneurs have somehow a reflection of the apostolic in them, but often they're unsanctified.
Večina poslovnežev
And untaught.
ima na določen način odražajo to apostolsko, ampak običajno niso sveti v svojem načinu življenja.
But there's an interesting point here, because Ephesians tells us that the very foundations of the ecclesia, in the widest sense, the church, the body, the kingdom,
V Efežanih vidimo, da v najširšem smislu cerkev pomeni.
is that true, Terry? So what that means is these two offices, prophetic and apostolic, coming together must be very powerful.
Da če te dve službe, apostolska in preroška, pridete skupaj, mora biti zelo mogočno.
Which is probably why they don't.
In to je verjetno razlog, zakaj se to ne zgodi.
Because often the prophetic can be a little insecure,
Ker običajno je preroški dar malo negotov,
a little bit misunderstood,
malo narobe razumljen,
a little bit quirky,
malo čudaški.
often gets thrown out of churches
Pogosto ga vržejo iz cerkve,
because the gift can be very strong
ker je dar
and can come into conflict with leadership. This is just a generalization, not all.
To na splošno govorim.
The apostolic almost doesn't know who it is.
Apostolski človek pa običajno ne ve, kdo je.
But the apostolic is the one who can teach, exhort,
Ampak
pastoral,
lahko uči,
mercy,
spodbuja,
prophetic, evangelistic.
evangelizacijo, spodbuja
Fundamentally, the apostles
različne službe.
are the ones that make it happen.
V bistvu so apostolske službe te, ki povzročijo, da se stvari zgodijo.
They're the enforcers, the implementers, the engagers, the bringing it out of thin air in the prophetic and making it flesh.
Te, ki usilijo spremembo, pripeljejo iz proroškega področja na zemljo, da se zgodi.
Have you ever heard a sermon on the prophetic and the apostolic cooperating together?
A ste že kdaj
Well,
slišali
well done, because it's rare.
o
It's rare.
pridigi, ki govorijo o apostolskem in proroškem, da delujete skupaj? Res je redko, ampak je čudovito.
A prophet came into our office. We'd been praying together many times in that season. We were having lots of all-night prayer events. And he came in one night and he said, Paul, this a call to business, which we understand is apostolic. This call to business. The English, in their do-down way, are waiting for it to fail. Because that's sometimes the English mindset. But it won't, and now it will go to the nations.
Predlog je prišel v našo pisarno v času, ko smo veliko molili, smo imeli tudi nočne molitve in je rekel, ta posel, sovražnik želi, da gre ta posel dol, ampak ne bo šel, je apostolski in bo vplival na narode. Ja?
So, fast forward. I found myself in a country called Sierra Leone. How many people heard of Sierra Leone?
Znašel sem se v Sierra Leone.
Why do you know about Sierra Leone?
Zakaj ste slišali?
Blood diamonds.
Krvavi diamanti.
All the wrong reasons.
Vsi napačni razlogi.
What is the GDP of Slovenia?
Kaj je
The annual turnover of your nation?
bruto prihodek na prebivalstvo v Sloveniji, na prebivalce v Sloveniji?
What was it in 2016, for example?
Koliko je bilo
The total
2016?
turnover of the nation of Slovenia.
Bruto prihodek Slovenije.
44 billion.
44 milijard.
How many people in Slovenia?
Koliko ljudi v Sloveniji?
2 million.
2 milijona.
What do you think is the GDP in 2016 of Sierra Leone?
Koliko mislite, da je bil bruto prihodek v 2016 v Sierra Leone?
3.6 billion
3,6 milijard.
with 7 billion people. That means the average income in Slovenia is $20,000 a year.
In 7 milijonov ljudi, to pomeni v povprečju v Sloveniji je 7 milijonov na leto.
And in Sierra Leone, around $600 a year.
In v Sierra Leone okoli $600 na
So you have
leto.
grinding poverty,
Tako da je izjemna revščina.
and yet it has 14 of the world's top 16 minerals. 14 of the world's top 16 minerals, like gold, diamonds.
Ama kljub tem, čeprav ima 14 najbolj iskanih mineralov, rudnike v tej državi.
You could drop a seed, it will start growing.
Lahko spustiš seme in bo začel rasti.
It has beaches better than the Caribbean.
Ima obale boljše kot na Karibih.
Since the conflict ended in 2002, it's safe.
Odkar se je konflikt nehal 2002, je varna dežela.
It's safer than London,
Bolj varna kot London,
some parts.
nekateri deli.
It has an industrious people.
Ima podjetne ljudi.
So why is it so poor?
Zakaj je torej tako revna?
Why do you think?
Zakaj mislite?
Corruption.
Korupcija.
Corruption. Sometimes we call corruption the fertilizer of poverty.
Včasih imenujemo korupcijo gnojilo za revščino.
Corruption at all levels of life, including governmental.
Korupcija na vseh nivojih življenja, vključno z vlado.
And so when we arrived there in 2005, there's no electricity in the whole nation.
Tako da, ko smo prišli tja v 2005, sploh ni bilo elektrike po celi državi.
Why? Because somebody provided the money to build the hydroelectric dam, and as they were digging, they found diamonds and turned it into a diamond mine.
Ker je nekdo dal denar za narediti hidroelektrarno in ko so kopali, so našli diamante in so spremenili to v rudnik diamantov.
In fact, in 2005, the entire size of the economy was $10 million.
V 2005 je bila cela ekonomija vredna $10 milijonov. Neverjetno.
So, with this apostolic, prophetic, kingdom thinking,
in s tem apostolskim, proroškim, kraljevskim razmišljanjem,
in a hotel lobby
sem
with two men.
V hotelski kavarni z dvema človekoma.
Thank you. You could go on to investments if you click investments, and this is, let's pretend it's Terry and Peter, and I'm sharing the story like I've been sharing with you today about the kingdom.
Larry in Peter in ima govorim zgodbo o kraljestvu, tako kot sem vam povedal.
And this pastor here, Felix, I said, look, I'd like to invest money in you two. What is it you do? He said, I'm a pastor.
Ta pastor tukaj, ki mu je bilo ime Felix, sem mu rekel, rad bi vložil denar v vas.
But I also have a lumber business.
In je vprašal, kaj delaš? Sem pastor, ampak imam tudi proizvodno lesa.
Bringing wood from the forests.
Vozim les iz gozda.
The other guy had a stationery shop. Stationery like paper and
trgovino s papirjem.
I shared with them this paradigm, and I said to the pastor, tell me where you're more likely to make a disciple. In your church, on a Wednesday night, Friday night, Sunday service, or if you're walking alongside them every day, 40 hours a week, in the lumber business.
In sem vprašal pastor, ko sem mu razložil ta način mišljenja, kje boš naredil več učencev v svoji cerkvi, sreda, petek, nedelja, ali v svojemu poslu z lesom.
Unfortunately, the most prevalent response in West Africa is yes, sir.
Običajno je najpogostejši
So
odziv
he pretended he's got it, but it's yes, sir.
Ja, gospod.
We went on a journey.
Delal, da je razumel in je rekel, ja, gospod.
I invested $1,500 in this man and $1,500 in this man dollars. And I said, I'm going to come back in 1 year.
In sem rekel, bom vložil $15,000 vate in pridem nazaj čez 1 leto.
And like a parable, I arrived back in 1 year.
In tako kot v priliki sem prišel nazaj čez 1 leto.
This man has gone. In
In
Africa, they call it, he's eaten the money.
V Afriki to imenujejo, da je pojedel denar.
This man meets me with 10 women.
Me sreča z 10 ženskami.
And this woman who's been used to breaking rocks for a living at the side of the road, he's bought her a sewing machine. And she's wearing a beautiful dress and headgear.
In ta ženska, ki je prej razbijala kamne, je začela šivati in je čudovito oblečena.
And she was almost singing her happiness about her new little business.
In je skoraj pela od veselja o svojemu novemu poslu.
So I thought, well, this is like microfinance. This is great.
In sem si mislil, to je kot
Do you
mikrofinanciranje.
think you can handle some more money? We said to the pastor, because the pastor was the one that survived here. He said, yes, sir.
In sem vprašal, mislite, da bi lahko še več denarja vložili? In je rekel, ja, gospod.
So we sent $10,000.
Smo poslali še $10,000.
Then 50.
In potem
Then
50.
100.
Potem 100.
Then $250,000. We kept on going back and forth, and it was a bit chaotic.
In sem potoval sem in
But there was also a
bilo
problem,
kaotično.
because the mindset of the Sierra Leonean was part of the issue. Because everything was the government's fault.
Težava pa je
It's the
bila
government.
v razmišljanju ljudi tam, ker mislijo, da je vse krivda.
This road outside the office has such big holes in it, it would break the axle of a Land Rover.
Ta svet zunaj je, ta cesta zunaj je tako slaba, da bi se še Land Rover polomil.
He said, the government should fix this.
Rekel je, vlada bi morala to popraviti.
get a quote to see how much it would cost to have the road 300 meters fixed.
In sem rekel, dob ponudbo, koliko bi stalo, da 300 metrov ceste popravimo.
This one.
Tale tukaj.
How much do you think it cost in Sierra Leone to fix this road, to have it leveled?
Koliko mislite, da je stalo v Sierra Leone, da so zravnali to cesto?
$100. Yeah. Because it's made with labor, and the labor is free for us. So the whole road is fixed and transformed for $100, and now it's
cesta je popravljena in zravnana za $100.
So this is a picture for you. It's not someone else's problem. It's
to je
our
slika
problem,
zate, to
and
ni
we can
problem
find a
nekoga
solution.
drugega. To je naš problem in mi lahko najdemo rešitev.
As the business grew, I remember coming into the office one day in Freetown, and a recent Muslim convert to Christianity has been accused of stealing $20,000.
In ko je ta posel rastel, sem pa šel enkrat v ta Freetown in en muslimanski spreobrnenec je bil obtožen, da je ukradel $20,000.
The police are called.
Policija je prišla.
He's humiliated in front of his family, his former college and his work colleagues.
In je bil ponižan pred svojimi kolegi in drugimi ljudmi.
Before they find out it was someone else who stole the money.
Preden so ugotovili, da je nekdo drug ukradel denar.
And because there is no kind of credit checks in a place like Sierra Leone, the guy over here, the loan officer, had impersonated his pastor brother and was actually a known criminal working for us. You got it?
No.
Okay. So we had an imposter on our payroll pretending he was his brother.
Imeli smo prevaranta na naši plačilni listi, ki se je pretvarjal, da je njegov brat.
So, long story short, we have to go to hundreds of women who've had their money taken from them.
Morali smo iti do 100 žensk, ki so jim vzeli denar.
And go to them, have a big gathering.
In vse skupaj zbrali.
And Terry, you'd appreciate this. And give them back twice what they've had stolen.
In jim dal dvakrat več, kot jim je bilo ukradeno.
The manager who called the police for the innocent man, we call him in.
Menedžer, ki je poklical policijo zaradi tega nedolžnega.
And we say, you know, this guy's a pastor, and we say, do you remember the story of the unmerciful master?
In smo ga vprašali, poznaš zgodbo tega neusmiljenega gospodarja?
How he went to the king because he owed him money and he was given mercy.
Kako je šel do kralja in mu je izkazal usmiljenje.
And then when he was given an opportunity, he beat his workers to give him the money back.
Potem pa je pretepil svojega sodelavca, da bi mu dal denar nazaj.
Do you remember when someone accused you of stealing last year and it was thoroughly investigated?
A se spomniš, kako je bilo, kaj je bilo tebe obtožil lansko leto in je bilo to natančno preiskano? Je rekel, ja.
Well, let me tell you, you're the man of the Bible.
In naj ti povem, ti si ta človek v Svetem pismu.
And we had this fabulously rich journey with the staff in Sierra Leone
To
to
izjemno
show them
bogato potovanje
the
z
Bible
ljudmi v Sierra
is the
Leone,
best business book in the history of the universe.
da jim pokažemo, da je Sveto pismo najboljša poslovna knjiga v zgodovini vesolja.
It's not someone else's problem.
Da ni problem nekoga drugega.
And the biggest blockage to the flow of money is corruption.
In da največja ovira za tok denarja je korupcija.
You deal with the corruption, money will flow.
Ko opravaš s korupcijo, bo denar tekel.
And don't put your hands in the air at church on Sunday and take a few dollars on Monday.
In ne dvigati svojih rok v cerkvi ob nedeljah, v ponedeljek pa jemati nekaj dolarjev.
Because we will not mix kindness with weakness.
Ker ne bomo mešali prijaznosti s pokvarjenostjo.
So next time I arrive and 3 of our loan officers, young, intelligent postgrads, are in jail.
Naslednjič pridem na obisk, so 3 uslužbenci, mladi, inteligentni v ječi.
Because they found a very good way to get around the software.
Ker so najdel dober način, kako pretentati program.
You know how long
Veste, koliko
an
časa?
employee will get in prison for stealing from their employer in Sierra Leone?
Koliko časa dobi zapora nekdo, ki okrade svojega sodelavca?
15 years.
15 let.
They're terrified.
In so prestrašeni.
I go to visit them in prison.
In jih gremo obiskati v zapor.
I say, okay, we have a choice here.
In sem rekel, imamo na
You
izbiro.
can give back all the money
Lahko date
that has
nazaj.
been stolen.
Ves
Don't
denar,
care how long it
ki je bil
takes.
ukraden, ni važno, koliko časa
You
traja.
can do community service, working in orphanages, working in schools.
Lahko delate družbeno koristno delo v sirotišnicah in
Or
tako naprej.
you can go to jail.
Ali pa greste v zapor.
We'll decide whether we press the charges or not. Of course, nearly all the money was returned.
Seveda so skoraj
They
ves
did
denar
community service.
delali so
And the
družbeno
message
koristno
goes
delo.
out powerfully.
In močno
to others.
sporočilo je šlo do drugih.
So this business started with $3,000.
Tako da ta posel se je začel s $3,000.
This was 2005.
To je bilo 2005.
I promise you, $3,000 was 30% of all the spare money I had.
In $3,000 je bilo takrat tretjina vsega privarčevanega denarja, ki sem ga takrat imel.
But God multiplied it
Ampak Bog je pomnožil to.
and multiplied it.
In pomnožil.
And then Ebola hits the nation.
In
This
potem je Ebola
terrible
zadela
disease.
ta grozna bolezen, ta narod.
All our staff are indigenous, so they are Sierra Leone.
Vsi naši zaposleni tam so iz Sierra Leone.
So nobody was going to run away.
Tako da nihče ni mogel pobegati.
So while most of the international lenders had to run away because it was so dangerous,
Večina ljudi iz drugih držav pa so morali pobegati, ker je bilo prenevarno.
our team said we will stay in country and we will lend even in the quarantined areas.
Naš tim smo rekli, da bomo ostali v državi in bomo pristali tudi v karanteni.
When we would go through Ebola, we would just touch elbows, not shake hands.
Ko smo šli
Hi!
v to, ko je bila Ebola, smo se samo pozdravljali s komolci.
By the end of Ebola, we were the largest lender in the nation.
Ko se je epidemija končala, smo bili največji posejevalci v državi.
One of the other businesses that we financed and established was an IT business. IT.
En drug posel, ki smo ga začeli, je bil računalniška firma.
And one day there was a group of World Bank, IFC, high-level people around the table.
In enkrat smo bili zbrani tako visokoprofilni ljudje
And they
na
said,
različnih področjih.
unless the health workers in this nation are paid within 6 weeks, the country is finished.
In so rekli, če zdravstveni delavci ne bodo plačani v 6 tednih, je konc to država.
Because the health workers were beginning to go to Liberia, to Guinea, anywhere to get money, and of course they were needed to solve the crisis.
Ker so zdravstveni delavci uhajali v sosednje države, ampak so bili potrebni tukaj zato, da so lahko reševali krizo.
Does anybody have any ideas?
Ama kdo kakšno...
Yeah, what about the young IT guy, you know, this company,
Ja, kaj je
IDT Labs?
ta mlada računalniška firma.
They got them in,
Dobili so jih noter,
they devised a piece of technology
naredili so eno napravo,
to link the electoral roll, the nation's register of people,
da poveže
like the register of people living in Sierra Leone,
register vseh ljudi v prebivalstva v državi,
together with mobile phone technology.
skupaj s tehnologijo mobilnih telefonov.
They discovered people that were registered 3 times, people that didn't exist, ghosts,
In so
and they were able to
odkrili
cleanse the data.
ljudi, ki so bili registrirani 3-krat, ljudi, ki niso obstajali, duhove in so očistili bazo.
30,000 health workers were paid within 6 weeks.
30,000 zdravstvenih delavcev je bilo
Out of this whole journey, another company grew in our group to do with media, to do with media called Life by Design.
In še ena firma je nastala iz tega, ki se imenuje življenje po načrtu.
In Sierra Leone,
Medijska firma.
when someone dies, The culture is you wash the body.
V Sierra Leone je kultura taka, da ko nekdo umre, umijejo telo.
It would be terrible disrespect not to wash the body.
Zelo grozno nespoštovanje bi bilo, da tega ne naredijo.
But the medical imperative was don't touch the body or you will get Ebola.
Ampak zdravstvena zapoved je bila, ne dotikaj se ljudi, da ne dobiš ebole.
So our TV program company made a soap opera.
Tako da je naša TV ekipa naredila eno oddajo.
A 30-minute program showing you why, yes, it's cultural, but don't do it because this is what will happen to you. And in a nation where perhaps 70% of the people are illiterate.
30-minutna oddaja, ki je razložila, zakaj ne tega narediti. In to v državi, ki je toliko veliko ljudi ne vere.
Through the brilliance of many workers, many people taking risks with their life, the crisis ended.
Čez odličnost ljudi, ki so žrtvovali tvega svoja življenja, se je ta kriza nehala.
And our group of companies was a very big contributor to that result, if you like.
In naša skupina firm je bila velik prispevek k temu rezultatu.
After the crisis stopped,
ko se je kriza končala,
we applied for a banking license.
Smo zaprosili za licenco za banko.
And this little tiny 3,000 lending business
in ta majhen biznis, ki se je začel s $3,000 posojila,
is now the only pro-poor bank in West Africa.
Je zdaj edina
pro-poor, so lending to the poor.
Je edina banka v Afriki, ki posoja revnim.
So we would lend between $100 to 100,000.
Posojali smo od $100 do 100,000.
And the investment that has gone into the various companies now in this incredibly high-risk nation through our office is $17 million.
In investicija, ki je šla čez nas v to izjemno revno državo, je $17 milijonov.
And many have come in and imitated, which is fantastic, and done similar things.
So prihajali nas posnemali, kar je odlično.
Every single day in the morning in the office is fabulous worship.
Vsak dan v pisarni je izjemno slavljenje.
Taking the problems of the day
vzamemo probleme tistega dneva
and looking at them through the lens of Scripture.
In jih gledamo skozi leče Svetega pisma.
Last 2 months, 2 big institutions came to look at what we're doing.
Pred 2 mesecema sta 2 veliki inštituciji prišla gledati, kaj delamo.
They gave us 2 million.
Dali so nam 2 milijona.
And by July that would have grown to 10 million.
In do julija je to zraslo.
The business plan to 2022 is to grow the loan book to 40 million.
Posel, ki je planiran do 2025, je dobil 40 milijonov.
By April 2019, we're raising a further 30 million for all the other businesses.
Do aprila 2019, we were raising how many?
Another 30 million.
Zbiramo še naslednjih 30 milijonov.
And then in December there was 500 people gathered in Freetown with the president and all the government ministers, and this group that is so overtly Christian was voted the best business group in the nation.
In vsa ta skupina poslovnežev je bila izbrana za najboljši posel v državi.
I want to say to you, this is a picture of the kingdom being established in real time.
In to je slika, kako se Božje kraljestvo v realnem času vzpostavlja.
It touches people, it touches prophets, it touches problems,
dotika se ljudi,
it touches transformation.
Problemov, transformacij.
And Sierra Leone, why would God lead us to Sierra Leone?
Zakaj bi nas Bog vodil v Sierra Leone?
because it was the poorest nation on planet Earth.
ker je bila to najrevnejša država na Zemlji.
And the picture I have in my mind, and we'll probably stop at this one now. Yeah.
In slika, ki jo imamo zdaj,
The picture I have in my mind is like
ki
this.
imamo zdaj v umu, je to.
Sometimes Satan attacks the ones early in their life who have the greatest gifting.
Včasih Satan napade ljudi zgodaj v življenju, ker imajo velik dar.
Physical attacks, sexual attacks,
Telesni napadi,
abuse.
spolni zloraba.
and often the implication of this is to bring on people, young people, shame, so that their life is impaired.
In pogosto je posledica tega, da so mladi ljudje paralizirani s sramom.
In the late 1990s, Charles Taylor invaded with his rebel army Sierra Leone.
V poznih 90-ih letih prejšnjega stoletja je
Charles Taylor
Charles Taylor vstopil v to državo.
This was not actually a war, it was a mass criminal act
Napadel državo in to je bilo masovno kriminalno dejanje,
where a child would have to take a machete and cut off his brother's arm or his sister's leg if he wanted to be part of the army, if not he would be shot dead.
kjer je otrok je moral odsekati roko ali nogo svojemu bratu ali sestri, če je hotel biti del te vojske, sicer pa so ga ustrelili.
50,000 people died.
50,000 ljudi je umrlo.
Tens and tens and tens of thousands had their limbs amputated.
Na 10,000 so imeli okončine odrezane.
We see virtually nothing but forgiveness and grace from people that were so abused. You see almost nothing but forgiveness and grace from the ones that were abused.
Vidiš samo še milost in odpuščanje od ljudi, ki so bili zlorabljeni.
And our belief is that Sierra Leone, as a small West African nation, will be one of the greatest nations in Africa.
In verjamemo, da Sierra Leone, ki je ena od najmanjših afriških držav, bo ena od največjih, najbolj vplivnih afriških držav.
But you're fighting the demonic at such a deep level.
Ampak borijo se z demonskim tako globoko.
The prize must be so magnificent.
Če imaš tak boj, je cena izjemno velika.
Yeah. We're going there again in November. Some of us are going to be doing a 10K run just to help some people there. But if anybody ever wanted to come to Sierra Leone, tell me. And I hope that you found that story interesting.
Če je kdo od vas, če ga je koga pritegnila ta zgodba, če bi rad videl Sierra Leone, se mi oglasite.
Just before we close this session, we're going to switch gears and be more interactive now in the second one. But does anybody have any questions from what I've said?
Ima kdo kakšno vprašanje glede tega, kar sem povedal?
Or do you want to save them to the next session?
Ali želite to prihraniti za naslednjo uro?
Okay. Thank you for listening again.
Hvala, da ste poslušali.